This podcast is hosted by the Center for the Futures of Native Peoples at Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, USA, which is about a mile from the former grounds of the Carlisle Indian Industrial School. We are working to bring honest interpretations of the Carlisle Indian School that was in operation from 1879 until 1918. We honor the 7,800 Indigenous students from across the United States who came to Carlisle. The Indian School is a significant place of remembrance for our Native peoples. Because of the endurance, strength, and prayers from our people who went to the Carlisle Indian School, many of us are here today. Kowatsi! It's Dr. Mandy Cheromiah, also known as Dr. Kaltui or Dr. Sapoon, which is my Inupiaq name, meaning big guns or strong. Welcome back to another podcast. This is a year in review. This is the top 20 observations that I have of living here in Carlisle, working here in Carlisle, feeding the spirits and praying here in Carlisle. My top 20 observations of navigating this very unique place, this significant place of remembrance. I am going from the most, the list will start with 20 and go to number 1, which I believe is the most significant observation. And we'll just dive right into it. So number 20, time is fluid here. Literally walking on the grounds of the former Carlisle Indian Industrial School and learning from the archives, talking with other descendants, having different healing ceremonies and the events that we host here at our center, hearing various stories from descendants and the archives. All of it truly is a place and a time where time is truly fluid, because what has occurred in the past truly impacts me today personally and many other descendants and survivors, and impacts us in the future. So that is a reminder that when you come to Carlisle, I think it's so important just to remember how time is viewed here, especially from an Indigenous perspective. A lot of times in Indigenous ways of knowing and worldviews, time is very fluid. It's not like a historical timeline. Like, sure, like we know the school opened in 1879 and closed in 1918. That is historically right on the timeline. But what happened and transpired in that time and before and after, though, is very fluid and nonlinear. So it's important to remember that. Number 19. One observation is that there's a large group of non-Indigenous people who are learning about the Carlisle Indian School and other boarding schools across the country. And these Indigenous relatives, non-Indigenous relatives, want to help in advancing the knowledge of the Indigenous boarding school experiences, but sometimes don't necessarily know how to do so. So here are some strategies for those non-Indigenous relatives and really anybody to help advance the healing work of our Indigenous communities. So one, of course, connect with our Center for the Futures of Native People. Follow us at CFNP Dickinson on Facebook and Instagram, on TikTok and YouTube and X. Connect with us in that way. You can financially give to our center. We only have funding until December 2025. We currently have Mellon Foundation funding to sustain us until December 2025. Another thing you can do is to educate yourself. Explore the Carlisle Indian School Digital Resource Center, which has been in existence coming into its 11th year. And this is run by my colleague, Jim Gerenser, and his wife, Kate Timer, also helps too in helping to curate the content, tag the content, archive it. So yeah, highly recommend you visit the Carlisle Indian School Digital Resource Center. Number 18, when relatives come and visit, I've learned to really go with the flow. So for example, in November, we had our Center for the Futures of Native Peoples Advisory Board come into town. And we met at the center and I laid out an agenda for the few days that the relatives were here. And we had met here in Grandma's house, our 3-story colonial style house, what we call it Grandma's house. And we were here and the agenda for the day, or the flow of the day, was to meet here, give, some introductions, and then head on over to the Carlisle Barracks, and we would do, walk around and I'd share story. And then in the afternoon, go to the archives at Cumberland Historical Society. And when we all sat down it was later on in the morning, and we all sat down at grandma's table, which essentially is like a 15, 16 seat conference table in the heart of our building. And we sat there and had welcomed everybody. And I just, had mentioned like, okay, we're, go around the table and share who you are. And so we can better get acquainted with one another. So I turned to my left and looked at my relative, and Ty, his name's Ty Fierce, and so he's one of our student fellows, national fellows, and he shared his story. And we literally went around the table, and it was not a quick 5-10 minute introduction like I thought it was going to be, but it literally turned out to be about a 2 hour, 2.5 hour talking circle. And I did not anticipate that to happen, but that's how it unfolded. And when we were at the table, our relatives shared very heartfelt stories and how our relatives are processing Carlisle. And so I was like, okay, let's just rip up the agenda and just go with the flow. And it worked out where in the afternoon I was able to share story with them at the Carlisle barracks. And then throughout the different days that we had here, they were able to go, some of them went to go see the archives. So I've really learned here in Carlisle, especially when our Native relatives come and visit, to truly go with the flow. Because you have to remember, this place is very significant, and people are coming with a lot of different emotions. And I have learned personally that as I prepare and as I welcome our Native relatives here, I also take on their emotions too. And that includes pain, that includes joy, that includes different emotions like anger and grief. And so it really is navigating in and out of these different emotions. But when relatives come here and visit, definitely got to go with the flow. Number 17. I have to be intentional to find joy here. And I've learned different about myself, kind of just checking in with my body physically and emotionally. And I learned that I hate physically being sick in Carlisle. I experienced cabin fever, and oh my gosh, I feel like I have a small glimpse of what my Indigenous relatives may have experienced at the Carlisle Indian School. Because when I was sick and when I had this cabin fever, and this was over the Thanksgiving holiday season, and I just felt so alone. Like I had, friends check in on me and text me, and my family, of course, like check in on me. I just felt like I just wanted to go home. I just wanted to be with my family in New Mexico. I just felt so sad. I was like, there was this longing just to go home. And of course too, I try not to make everything all spiritual here, but it's hard not to. Like seriously, like when I was sick, I was thinking about the Indian school students that were sick too. And of course, like I recognize I had nothing like life threatening at all. Like, and I recognize that, I have really good insurance and have the medicine that I need to take care of myself. But I did think about our relatives who were sick and how they experienced this place when they were sick. And oh, finding that joy. Like one time a colleague asked me, like, "Are you having fun here?" And this is here in Carlisle. And I laugh at that question because it's still like ironic to me. I'm like, I've had moments of fun here, and this is a shout out to the different community members that have reached out to me. And of course, when our Native relatives come here, I find a lot of joy in being with them and laughing. Even when our advisory board was here, it was just such a great joy and time to laugh and heal together and be with one another. But I do really have to be intentional about finding joy. And it was really neat too, because shout out to Barb Landis, who was she's my adopted grandma here. So Grandma Barb, shout out to her. She recently took me to various spots around the local Carlisle community and different villages is what I've learned. Some of those small little towns are called, and like Mount Holly Springs, as well as Boiling Springs. And there was just different parks. Well, now they're like state parks, but there's different areas where our Indian people had the opportunity to go out and camp and to experience the elements like the water or to play different sports. So she recently took me to some of these areas, and that was really neat because I was like, whoa, like I'm again walking in the footsteps of my ancestors at these different places beyond Carlisle, which was really neat. And I'm just so grateful for that opportunity to go and find joy in these different places outside of Carlisle. So that was really neat. And this one story comes to mind too. Like my sister was here in November and we went to Philadelphia and she was there for the first time. And of course, we did the Rocky Steps. And I don't know, in my opinion, like I'm a big Rocky fan because my mom's a big Rocky fan. So I love Rocky. I think Rocky 4 is the best movie, in my opinion. And so we did the Rocky Steps, which I think is kind of anticlimactic, but I'd be curious to know what you think about that. But so we did the Rocky Steps and then we went to a concert at the Fillmore and we saw The Sacred Souls. And oh my gosh, my sister and I love soul oldies, is what the genre is called. And this group was so amazing. We got VIP seats, like we upgraded when we were there. My sister like gifted that to me for my birthday because my birthday was in October. And we just had so much fun. Oh my gosh. And so we were coming back. Oh my gosh. It was like 2 in the morning, right? The concert ended like so late. And so my sister was driving. And so we were cruising back and I was falling in and out of sleep on the passenger side. And so, but I would randomly wake up and then I'd sing a song with her and then I'd like crash out. And then I wake up again randomly a few minutes later and sing another song and then crash out. And then she'd be like, Mandy, just stay up or go to sleep. Like she wasn't feeling me singing one song and then crashing out. But when we cruised into Carlisle, oh my gosh, this must have been like, I don't know, 3, 4 in the morning. My sister and I, we actually cruised by the Carlisle barracks, and that's where like our relatives are buried. And I wasn't quite sure why my sister wanted to cruise down that way, so late, and we were both tired, and so I was like, okay, yeah, we can go. And so we just cruised by it, we didn't stop or anything. Like, for those who may not know, the Carlisle Barracks Post Cemetery is right off the road, and you can literally cruise by it on the road that's there and see our relatives' headstones. And so that's the road that we cruised on. And so we were cruising by, and again we were just, listening to music and jamming out. And then after we had passed by, my sister said, she was like, I wanted our relatives to see us enjoy. And that, oh my gosh, that just got me, like, oh man, like, my sister and I were just singing and we were just so happy just being together, as we were coming back to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, of all places. And so yeah, so finding places of joy, I have to be very intentional about that, but it's getting better here for sure in terms of finding joy. Number 16, intertribal experiences are powerful here. So to come alongside and to pray with all kinds of Indigenous peoples is a very meaningful experience. A lot of times our Indigenous relatives who come here, they bring medicines like tobacco and cornmeal, sage or cedar, and many other elements. And oftentimes when they're done praying, they'll leave the elements with us here at Grandma's house. So we have different wicker baskets, and shout out to whoever bought us some wicker baskets and dropped it off at Grandma's house. We have no idea who gave it to us, but shout out to you. We're using the wicker baskets for our medicine. And so that's where we leave it so that when other relatives come and they may not have certain medicines to pray with, then we have it ready to go. And it's an honor to be able to keep those elements in prayer and have them here. So one time in September of this year, when it was during the repatriation ceremonies, I was at Cumberland Historical Society and was there greeting some of the tribal delegations that were part of the repatriation ceremony. And I was sitting there with about 4 of the delegates, and we were, I always just wait and just, follow our relatives' lead, especially in that time. And I was there sitting there for like 5 minutes or so, and one of the elder medicine men, he like, spoke across the table and he asked me, he was like, are you writing a book? And I said, no, I'm not writing a book. And he said, you should write a book because of all the experiences you're having here, all the different people you're meeting from all these different tribes. So I think that elder was very prophetic in what he said to me. And I always remember him because when he was leaving, when they were leaving the historical society, he has these white Crocs, which I have white Crocs too. And I told him when he was leaving out the door, I was like, hey, I like your Crocs. He's like, he looked at me and he like nodded his head. He's all, they're my moccasins. And then he walked out. And that's the last time I talked to him. So yeah, I really, that was a very meaningful moment to me. But even though that we are from different tribal communities, we truly share the same values, similar values of prayer, humor, and respect. and many other values. And I don't know, it's just really special to be here to connect with all these different tribal peoples and communities. Number 15, the Grand Canyon is truly unfolding here. And I've shared this before in different episodes, but for those who may have missed it, how I describe what's unfolding here is truly the Grand Canyon. Like, think about the most significant natural resource place you've ever been to. And for me, it's one of them is the Grand Canyon. When you're in that place, there's this magnificence, this beauty, this awe, amazement, and wonder. And if you're there by yourself, sometimes it can seem very scary and daunting. But if you're there with people, it could be a sense of adventure and wonder and just this excitement. And there's all these elements working together, like wind and rain and animals and plants, all moving together. Sometimes you can see and can't see them. But there's just this sense of awe and wonder and amazement. And this is how I describe what's happening here in Carlisle, Pennsylvania today. And it's important to recognize that because there's no words to truly describe what's happening here now. And there's a lot of words to describe what did happen here, between even before 1879, before the Indian School was established. This is how I describe what's unfolding. And it's hard to articulate, but I'll just sum it up as the Grand Canyon is unfolding here. Number 14. Creating Grandma's house has been an integral part of building community and a place of healing. There are hundreds of photographs that we have in our 3-story colonial style house, and much love and shout out to Holly, who is the administrative assistant here. Holly is the glue to the Center for the Futures of Native Peoples. She helps me so much to navigate the technical processes of the university, the logistical processes of our events and different initiatives, with travel to help people come in and out of Carlisle. Like, much love to Holly. This work has advanced so much because of her skill set and administrative skills to help further the work here. And with our house, in this season of time, we put up a Christmas tree and we have medicines on our table. And I often ask myself, like, what would bring me joy? What would bring us joy? And like the Christmas tree was an example. Like, it makes our house very homely, very welcoming. And as I hear students and different relatives come in, they say like, oh, this place is so cozy. So I really enjoy that feedback because, again, you have to remember, like, as Indigenous people and other relatives, like, we're processing this place that can be really, really traumatic and hard to navigate. And so in Grandma's house, it's a place of refuge, and it does make us really different than the archives, like even Dickinson Archives, right? Or even Cumberland Historical Society, or even the Carlisle Barracks itself. Like, our place, our Grandma's house is a place of refuge where you can just be. And that is powerful. Number 13. So I'm in higher education. Sometimes I don't feel like it when I'm here in Carlisle, but in higher education, at times I have felt siloed in large institutions like my previous institution, the University of Arizona, which is a large public school. It has over 45,000 students and it's located in southern Arizona. And it's one of the flagship schools in the state of Arizona. And sometimes in that place, I often felt siloed because it was so big. But interesting enough, here at Dickinson College, which is a small private liberal arts school, I experienced some of those same sentiments of being siloed. So as a student affairs practitioner, as a storyteller, as a person in higher education, what this has shown me is that at an institution of any degree, of any higher learning, as a professional, you really have to make an effort to be part of community, to find community, and to get connected. And while I've done that throughout the semester, I definitely know that in the different semesters coming, I want to make more of an effort to be a part of the community, to not feel so siloed all the time, but to be a part of this campus community. And I think some of this is just in my own timing too, right? Because I'm still trying to grapple and handle just being in Carlisle. Like, that is a whole nother venture in itself. But I do want to make more of an effort to be a part of the Dickinson community at the larger campus level. Number 12. So recently I was sent by Jim Gerenser, who is the founder and leader and the lead archivist with helping to launch and to curate and to develop the Carlisle Indian School Digital Resource Center. So that website receives so much traffic. And so he sent me a list of the 305 Pueblo students that attended the Carlisle Indian School. Now he just recently sent this to me a couple days ago. And when I saw it, I put this request in, I don't know, a few months ago, but I knew that they had to go through him and his team. Shout out to Moses and Lily and Jim. They had to, go through the data, kind of clean up some of the information there because, again, remember, these names are linked to archival web pages that have stories of our Indian people and our Pueblo people in particular. And when I received the list, I was really taken back because out of the 305 Pueblo people, about 200 of them are from my tribal community of Laguna Pueblo. 200 and something, I can't remember the exact number, but about 2/3 represent my tribal community. And that really impacts me. And usually when I find information in regards to different tribal communities, like I have, my friends, I'll send them like, hey, like, look at this. This is from your tribal community. And with our Pueblo people, and like, I'll send, text messages to my family or friends, the colleagues that are Pueblo. And I have not sent out this list yet. I'm not ready to send out this list of Pueblo students yet. And it's literally like I'm sitting with them. It's like I need to process some of this first before I send it out. And I'll share that information probably sooner than later, but there's just like this special moment where I see it's an Excel sheet, right? But it's like this list of our Indian people, their names, you see their names. And when you click on their archive, their school record, you'll see some of their Indian names. You'll see some of the villages that I know of, that I'm from, right? Like, oh my gosh, like it's a lot to take in. And I don't know, I think it's just a point of reflection that I want to share in this space because I work here, right? I get paid by Dickinson College, but it's not like any other job I've ever had. The emotional and the psychological, the spiritual toll that's required, the strength that's required to be here is very real and sometimes very hard to garner. Sometimes that strength that's needed for this job. But, which brings me into my number 11, I am thankful for those who have welcomed me, who have shared a meal with me, who has dropped off treats to grandma's house, who has sent me social media messages, who made me soup when I was sick. Shout out to Emily. I am thankful for all of those who have helped welcome me here in Carlisle. And I've shared, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. And the reason why I do that is because I want people to know that as I'm experiencing all these different emotions, that they're not alone in experiencing that, especially with our Native people, our Indian people, and our Indian youth in particular. Like, I really hope that these authentic messages impact and help build the confidence of our Indigenous people, first and foremost. That's always my hope and my goal. And so I just give a shout out to all of you who have helped welcome me here in Carlisle. Number 10, the Indigenous relatives who visit Carlisle have been such an integral part to sustaining me here. And we've had different initiatives that, like Indigenous Peoples Day, we had 2 relatives come in from the Gila River Indian community, having them here. And then also we had Dr. Johnny Sweeney come, as well as Geraldine Torlino. And so these are relatives that came here for Indigenous Peoples Day to help celebrate and to help me host, really, too, and share a story with our community here at Dickinson, who has, from what I understand, maybe 3, 4 students who identify as Indigenous, but on the records, the Dickinson records, it's actually 0. But we know anecdotally of about 3 or 4 students who identify as Indigenous. And so them coming here, like I always look forward to the next ceremony we're having, the next event, because when the Indigenous relatives come, I learn so much from them, and they help me heal, and they help me continue the journey here. They always build me up, which I'm so thankful for. Number 9, the Carlisle Vortex is so real. I stand by that. If you haven't heard the episode with me and my sister, the Carlisle Vortex with Benj, like I encourage you to listen to that episode. I truly think this place, oof, man, it carries power. I am very cognizant of that on a daily basis and very mindful about that. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. The Carlisle Vortex is very real. Number 8. There have been many caretakers who have been here for decades, caring for the stories of our Indigenous peoples. And I want to give a shout out specifically to Barb and to Susan, to Jim and Kate. I have personal relationships with each one of them, and I honor you if you're listening. I honor them. They have helped to curate, to bring together our Indigenous people, to help host our Indigenous people for many, 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 many years. And I just honor them. And I take my place in this too, and I recognize too our relatives that are beyond Carlisle as well. Sandy, my other adopted grandma, is another one. Marianne, and it's these are relatives as part of the Circle Legacy, and they have done work here in Carlisle and in Pennsylvania, and I just honor them. And I am taking my spot in the ranks, I guess maybe is one way to put it. I'm taking my spot like in this healing journey here in Carlisle, and I just stand in awe of the work of how these relatives have sown so many hours of their lives to help with the preservation of our Native people stories. So I honor them. Number 7. The repatriation ceremonies are like nothing I have experienced in my personal and professional career. And first, I'll speak professionally. Coming to Dickinson College, and I shared this with one of my colleagues too, and I was just sharing like how sometimes I do not feel like I'm in higher education here in Carlisle. And one of my boss actually told me, she was like, you're transforming higher education. And I definitely feel like that's the case here, especially with the repatriation ceremonies. And so for those who may not know, for those tribal communities, the delegations that come to Carlisle in September, what we do with the Center for the Futures of Native People and the archives with Jim Grinser and Lily, we're a team together here at the college. When our relatives need a break or just need time away from, the Carlisle Barracks Post Cemetery, our relatives at the Army will bring them here to Grandma's house, where I'm recording this podcast episode right now. They'll bring them here, and we welcome them, and we share stories with them. We give them gifts, and we as a team provide insight to their relatives that they're looking to take home. And before all of this happened, like it's really hard to articulate how to prepare for something like this. But what I leaned on is, of course, prayer, and knowing that from my own tribal community, I am aware of cultural protocols of respect and how to operate and navigate among our Indigenous people. And in my opinion, the way that I approached all of this is in two ways: is to, one, to listen to our relatives, and two, to follow their lead. These repatriation ceremonies is not academic. It's not an academic conference. It's not some kind of symposium or summit. It's not a research conference. None of that. None of that matters. What matters is to help serve our Indian people in any way we can. And the whole month of September, it feels like we're on call. Like I literally clear my calendar so that we can help serve our Native people when they come here. Because you have to remember, like you have to intentionally come here. And for them to come to repatriate their loved ones, like that is a high honor. It is emotionally and spiritually and physically involved and can often be draining in many capacities because you're experiencing all these emotions. And when we're here, that's why I say you have to listen to them and follow their lead. Because in my opinion, there's little room for error. Like, and when I say that, it's I don't want to say something or trigger something that would offend them or, like cause some kind of emotional distress. And so that's why I say, like, listening to them and following their lead, in my opinion, is the best way to help be a caretaker to help serve our people who are coming to Carlisle for those ceremonies. And so again, I've relied a lot on my own teachings and upbringings from my different communities that I've been a part of, especially like what my grandmas, my mom and like my relatives back home, my different friends. Like I've learned how to serve over the years. So I just extend that to this capacity here and those repatriation ceremonies. And personally, like that whole month, right in September, around the 20th or so of September, you've gone through several different ceremonies with different tribal communities coming in, at least this last year. And I really like around September 20th, September 21st, I was starting to really feel the weight of all of it because it's nonstop, because it is in the month of September, everybody, and not just me, like the our other relatives, right? Like the Office of Army Cemeteries and their colleagues, like we're all in this together in our different ways, in our different areas, and we all have a role. And even as I'm talking now, like I'm feeling some of the weight in my chest because I remember how I felt during that time because I care so deeply about our Indian people and our relatives. And it's heavy. It's heavy, heavy work. And I think that my Alaska Native relatives, my Inupiaq relatives who gave me the Indian name Sipun, that means big guns, like physically, literally physically that I'm strong. I think they were prophetic in giving me that name in 2022, and I think they knew something, that was coming that to help sustain me, among other things too. But it really truly is an experience like no other. So in the future years, like I feel more equipped to help and feel more just even personally what I need to do to prepare for that time. And number 6, the Center for the Futures of Native Peoples, our student advocacy fellows and other Dickinson students have sustained me. Oh my gosh, they helped me survive Carlisle. If you are a Dickinson student listening to this, I honor you. I love you. I care for you. And I thank you because you have helped me navigate and survive Carlisle. Your stories, your intellect, I admire so much of how inquisitive all of you are, of how much you truly care and go the extra mile to learn more about our Indian people. I love you and I respect you and I thank you so much. Number 5, creating our own ceremony here is essential. A lot of times, and this goes back to the repatriation ceremonies, I've heard different relatives say, like, there's not a specific ceremony for like boarding school students, but when our relatives come here, it's an extension of ceremony and what we already know. And when I say ceremony, oftentimes when I talk to different groups, right, like we use ceremony like high school graduation ceremony, right? There's military ceremonies of, graduating from one rank to another, or, within again, high school ceremonies, college ceremonies, there's like a protocol in the process of moving on to something, or, there's a way about it. And so when I talk about ceremony here, it's from this traditional perspective within our indigenous ways of knowing and being. And when I say that, it literally is like the innate knowledge that is given from our community, from our ancestors, from the creator, like that's in us. And here we've created our own ceremony, which has been so important, like for those relatives that are coming to our center. We oftentimes give scarves, the kokum scarves, like, or known as like the grandma scarves within our communities. Like they're the floral scarves that have just vibrant colors like blue and orange and yellow and pinks and reds. And we often give walking tour books that is authored by Kate Timer. And you can get those at the Cumberland Historical Society. we give these elements away. Like recently, we hosted the National Park Service here. We gave them a tour of our grandma's house, and gifted them these two things in light of the Carlisle Barracks being distinguished as at least the 24.5 acres being distinguished as a national monument. And when they were here, we knew that we wanted to gift them these elements because we're in this ceremony together of healing. And they may not see it like that. I'm not quite sure. It's like up for interpretation. People experience this all differently, but I know from our end that it is ceremony. And some other elements too where we've created ceremony. And I say we, and it's me leading this too, right? It's from what I know, like from my family, my grandmas and mom, and but feeding the spirits, like taking offerings over and putting them down at different parts where our ancestors walked. And then one of my own kind of ceremony traditions that I have is that when I go by the cemetery, the Carlisle Barracks Post Cemetery, because I usually sometimes go walk over there. There's a 2-mile loop over there at a golf course, and so I have to pass by the cemetery. Or sometimes I'll literally go, and pray at the cemetery. But every time I go, or I'm just passing by, I'll say, Kwatsi, like, hello, like, I'm here, like, Kautui, like, it's me, Kautui, like, I'm here. And, and when I'm leaving, I'll usually say, like, okay, I'm going now, or like, Kanye Kama, like, I'm leaving, like, I'll be back at some point. And like recently, it snowed here for the first time where the ground was covered with snow and it stuck here in Carlisle. So it was neat to see the snow. It was last night, and I'm recording this today, and this is in the midst of finals here at Dickinson College. So our center is open late. And so after I closed the center down around like 10 p.m., I went over to drive by the cemetery, and I wanted to see what the elements look like. There's fog and all these different, elements like snow I hadn't seen here in Carlisle, because I want to get a sense of what our Indian relatives experienced in these elements. So that's why I do it. So again, I just go over, I'm not scared or anything. I just say hello, okay, I'm going now. So creating this ceremony really is essential, our own ceremony. Number 4. Oh my goodness, I have survived Carlisle. And the way I say this way is that I constantly, and I emphasize constantly, experience microaggressions as a resident of Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And how I define microaggressions in this context that I'm in are essentially intentional and non-intentional subtle jabs rooted in racial undertones because I am different. Because I am an Indigenous Pueblo woman who occupies spaces in primarily white communities. And I often experience microaggressions. As a person of color, I'm sure you can relate in different spheres and different communities you've traveled to or are a part of. And I will share more about this in another podcast episode. And so I really encourage you to listen and to understand how not to commit microaggressions to people of color. I laugh because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many stories. It's unfortunate, but I guess it's fortunate because I guess it's a learning moment. I don't know. But when I say I survived Carlisle, that is a very intentional word because of the high volume of microaggressions that I experience. Okay, number 3. Humor is healing for sure. Oh my gosh. Like when our native people come, and this is true with the repatriation ceremonies, this is true with our Indigenous relatives coming for different events we have, our different board members coming. Humor is the common force and thread that binds us together. If I were to write a book, it would be something like Humor as Healing from an Indigenous Perspective, something like that. Because humor literally is how we and a lot of our relatives here get through what we're experiencing. And not only get through, but thrive. And Recently there was our board was here, and I know some people on the board personally, and some people I just met for the first time, and when we were here with the board, I had so much fun. There was one night where we went over to the Pad Center, which we had like a taco bar for some of our board members, and I just remember sitting there with some of our relatives, our board members, and I just remember at one point we were telling stories and just laughing. Oh my gosh, we were laughing so hard. And I had so much fun with them as they were here and we were experiencing Carlisle together. So, number 3, humor is healing for sure. I have many more stories about that, but that'll be for another time. Number 2, so I frequently see that our native people are written about in the past, and this drives me crazy because I'm like, we're right here. I'm right here. So make your writing in present tense regarding our indigenous people. And some ways I often do that is like it could be like a sentence like before the record of time, our indigenous people have inhabited the land we now know as Pennsylvania. I don't know, like that's a sentence, right? Because it acknowledges that we've been here. Or it could be another sentence like, indigenous people have inhabited this space and have sophisticated ways of knowing and being, comma, fill in the blank. Like, I don't know, just bring us in the present. Stop writing about us in the past. That is my biggest, oh man, it drives me crazy. Like early on when I was here in the job, like this was like maybe the first couple of meetings I had here as the executive director. There was some people that came and wanted me to look at their curriculum, and I was looking at it, and oh my goodness, it was so stereotypical. I was like, it's kind of cringeworthy. I was like, oh my goodness, like we got to start somewhere. I recognize that. Do your research, do your research. Like we're right here, write about us in the present tense. Number 1. So our Center for the Futures of Native Peoples and Dickinson Archives, specifically the Carlisle Indian School Digital Resource Center, we are uniquely positioned in this healing work. So there are 3 significant national imprints that happened this year. One was the release of the 2nd volume of the Federal Indian Boarding School Investigative Report. Number 2 was President Biden's apology that happened in October. And number 3, the Carlisle Federal Indian Boarding School National Monument Distinction. Those are 3 significant imprints that happened this year. And in my opinion, these are all really, really positive things. And I say this because you have to remember my positionality. I live and work in Carlisle. I pray here. I help receive relatives who come here from all over the country. And I am in this place doing the work, literally walking in the footsteps of our indigenous ancestors, of my relatives who went to the Indian school. There's 6 of them that I know of so far that went there. And I know the former grounds of the Indian school so well. Like I know what it looks like when the light changes and hits different parts of the barracks. Like I know how the shadows hit on the very headstones where our Indian people are buried. And I know like when the different twigs and branches fall in the cemetery, like I know what's different and when they come and clean it because I'm there so often. And in light of all of this, the Carlisle Indian School, the first off-reservation boarding school, represents, in my opinion, the whole boarding school experience for our Indian people, whether it happened there or not. And what makes the Indian school different here was the extensive amount of documentation that's there. And I've asked my colleagues, Jim and Kate, like, why is there so much documentation? And what they tell me is that literally the school opened and it closed within 39 years. And within those 39 years, like all that documentation, when it closed, it was sent to DC and ultimately preserved. But think about schools like the Phoenix Indian School, which was open for like 99 years, right? Those first, 30, 40 years, you probably just purge out some of the old, historical records, the first students that went there, and then just continue on with the record keeping. And so, but here, all of those documentations were preserved. And then another thing that makes this school different, this place different, is the extensive amount of photography. In my opinion, oh my gosh, those photographs are so powerful and distinct. And you look in those investigative reports that were issued by the Office of the Department of the Interior, and you see pictures after pictures of the Carlisle Indian School, because those pictures are powerful. And this is why, one of the reasons why I'm doing the podcast, because in this very place in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, the superintendent exploited our people. He sold these images, to get money for the school. And these narratives were sent out there widely. And this is a counter narrative where I, as a descendant of the Indian school, can share story our way, my way, our way, as an Indigenous person. And that is the power. Leading with the story, in my opinion, is where the power is at. And so in my opinion, all of these things that happened this year, these 3 significant happenings, I think it's good because it amplifies the story of our Indigenous people. And I think that is so important. And so as these, especially with this national monument distinction of the Carlisle Indian School, I'm really curious to see how we're going to help welcome more people here. Because remember, like, what makes us different, the center, what makes us different is that we're the place for healing, really, like where people can come and let their hair down, so to speak. Like, people can come here and light the medicines that we have. People can come here and have a cup of coffee and have snacks, just like grandma's house, like where we can share a story, where we can laugh. It's not this academic space like that you sometimes feel at, like at even our Dickinson archives, right? It's very academic space. Or even the Cumberland Historical Society, feels like an academic space for sure. It feels like a museum, but here, like grandma's house, our center, what we built is something that truly is ceremony. And that's what makes us different. So our grandma's house is our healing place. And it's not necessarily the structure, right? Like, we do live in a 3-story colonial style house, but it's what's in it that is what makes it grandma's house. It's the elements in it. It's our pictures. It's how we honor at the altar that we have, behind one of our doors, the altar. We have pictures of our boarding school relatives, like, it's what's in it that makes it grandma's house. It's not necessarily the structure, but it's what's in it. And it's us. It's the people. Those are my top 20 observations. I thank you so much for listening and for understanding more about the positionality of our center, as well as my own positionality as an Indigenous woman being here in Carlisle and navigating this place as a descendant, as a relative, as a higher education student affairs practitioner. And I don't even know if I really identify as a student affairs practitioner anymore. I don't know. Maybe I do. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out really like what this transformation of higher education looks like. But I do know that I'm a storyteller, that I'm a sister, that I'm a friend, I'm a relative. So, Dawaya, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. And leave us 5 stars on our podcast. If it's not 5 stars, let us know why. We look forward to hearing your feedback as well. Dawaya Hashame Gume. Dawaya, thank you so much for listening, relatives. Have a good day. If you want to learn more about the Carlisle Indian Industrial School, visit the Carlisle Indian School Digital Resource Center at carlisleindian.dickinson.edu. Many thanks to Brenda Landis for teaching me the technical process of producing a podcast. Learn more about the Center for the Futures of Native Peoples at dickinson.edu/CFNP. Follow us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X at CFNP Dickinson. Authenticity is important. You can learn more about me at amandacheromiah.com, and you spell my last name Cheromiah. You can also connect with me at drcheromiah on TikTok, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. I honor my relatives who came to the Carlisle Indian School. Because of them, I am here. And in the words of Chief Philip Whiteman Jr., a descendant from the Carlisle Indian School and from Northern Cheyenne in Montana, he says, I love you and there is nothing you can do about it. Hashtabegume Dawai, thank you so much, relatives, for listening. Until next time. And share about our podcast with your friends. Talk to you later.